Says Rockbridge County is muted, so bear with me. Yes, we should be good to go. Test.
Much
All
better.
right. Should be good to
Okay.
go. I
All
believe
right,
so.
great.
Yes, ma'am.
So we are going to call this meeting to order. We're going to have Commission Member Hennis here, Commission Member Kramer.
Here.
Commission Member Lucas. Absent. Commission Member Whitmore
Here.
and Commission Member Watkins.
Here. And I will let you, Mr. Lucas texted me today and said he was unable to attend. I just responded back, said thanks for letting us know.
Okay. In addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinar as described below. We'll do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, to join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can then press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. This time we'll proceed with the meeting. And first we have citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments this evening?
No one signed up.
Okay. So we will move on to the approval of the October 12, 22 minutes. Do we have any questions or corrections? Okay,
Make a motion to accept as submitted.
okay. May I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. And the minutes are approved as submitted. Now we're going to have the staff give the board reports. And that would be,
Yes. So at the October Board of Supervisors, I believe it was the 24th, October 24th Board of Supervisors, the regular scheduled meeting, the board approved the Swami Carmen application for a commercial greenhouse on Route 11 as recommended by the Planning Commission. And then the TCO did meet this month and they approved the exterior plans for Taco Bell. You may have seen Taco Bell is.
that was quick, like
it was
approve
quick.
and boom.
Yeah, and so they were waiting on us. We still have some exterior lighting plans to go, but all the building elevations, color schemes, that type of thing were approved. That, if I recall correctly, it was a $450,000 renovation inside and out. So that was a major renovation to that building. I would like to take this opportunity under board reports. That's all the board reports I had. The
Okay.
BZA did not meet this month. Would like to take this opportunity to some sad news and good news for the Office of Community Development. Start with sad news or unfortunate news. Zach Seastrom has left the Office of Community Development and accepted a job with the city of Harrisonburg as a plan reviewer. Y'all may have known that Zach was traveling to and from Harrisonburg on a daily basis. Was actually looking for some houses here, rental houses, that type of thing, and was unable to find something. Got a job offer in Harrisonburg, and obviously just made sense. With that being said, good news to share is we did successfully go through the hiring process for the deputy zoning administrator position, and that is aside from the zoning technician that Zach's role was. But we have hired Mr. Neil Whitmore, local resident in the Brownsburg area with his family, longtime employee with VMI, limited planning and zoning experience, but has a lot of experience with the community as far as leadership skills. He's been involved with, of course, VMI. He's been on the school board for quite some time as the Walker's Creek District, and then also associated with the Rockbridge Bass Volunteer Fire Department. So we're welcoming Neil starting on Monday, I believe it is, this coming up Monday. So
Great, thank you.
be introducing him at the next meeting, obviously.
Great. Okay, we are on to the comprehensive plan update discussion.
Yes, and so we obviously did not have any public hearings, which was, I was like, oh man, I thought I'd missed something. We had a public hearing scheduled for Dominion. Oddly enough, it was the rebuild line from Balcony Falls substation to Amherst. It's not even the one that was on the books from Craigsville to Goshen or Goshen to Craigsville. But they withdrew both of those applications. So rather than just calling, and you may remember last year, years before, November, December is a fairly slow month for us as far as application processes. But rather than just say, hey, we don't have any public hearings to go, I felt it'd be a good opportunity. Have a brief meeting, share with Vivica has done a pile of work. I won't say a brief meeting because Vivica has done a pile of work on the comprehensive plan. So I thought it'd be beneficial, at least bring us together, talk about that, talk about some zoning text amendments or some future plans for that. But without further ado, I'll allow let Vivica take over the floor and chat about the comprehensive.
Okay, so hopefully you guys all had a chance to kind of review the chapter that I put into the packet. You'll see that that there are some changes that have been made. The first one that you'll see is that we changed the title from history to historical preservation, because I feel that that better like encompasses what we're trying to accomplish. And then if we skip over the first 6 or 7 pages with the history of Rockbridge County, you'll see the list of historical sites and landmarks. And so 3 new landmarks have been added since this the comprehensive plan was completed in 2016. So those have been added at the end. It's number 50 through 52. And those are the Scott Hutton Farm, Brown Swisher Barn, and Taylor Kinnear Farm. So those are the most recent historical landmarks that have been added to the list. And then if we go one more page, you'll see map 1.1, and that encompasses the locations of all of those landmarks on the previous pages. So one other change that we made was we removed the legend from the map itself because it was pretty hard to read on the last one, just given the size of the page. And we moved those numbers to the map number column next to each landmark in table 1.1, so that there's an easier way to reference what number goes to which landmark. And then lastly, on the next pages, you'll see that we have changed the goals for the chapter. So the first page shows what we had previously. And then I crossed out on the next page, you'll see that I crossed out the ones that I feel have been accomplished. So we have worked with Preservation Virginia and the Virginia Department of Historic Resources to help gather more locations to add to the landmark list. And then Natural Bridge has been transitioned into the status of state park. So those two we can kind of check off of our list, and we don't necessarily need to have on there any longer. You'll also see that I added a second objective, which is to establish educational opportunities to inform area residents and tourists of the importance of stewardship and preservation to protect the county's historic resources. And I feel like that is a good objective that goes to the overall goal of protecting and preserving, because we have the identifying part of it. Now we just need to teach and educate and give the opportunity for people to understand why we're protecting those resources. And so I felt like that was a good goal to add, or a good objective to add underneath that goal. So those were the main changes that were made. If you have any suggestions for other goals that you or objectives or strategies that you would like to add, we would love to hear that. We'd also like to know in the very first part of the chapter, sorry, we're kind of skipping backwards, but under the history of Rockbridge, I think we had talked about it before that it's pretty lengthy. We have 6 or 7 pages worth of history right now. And as we've seen with the other locations comprehensive plans, we're trending towards shorter is better. So I think we have the opportunity to decide whether we want to keep it at the full length that it is now, or condense it down maybe into either bullet points or a timeline, to pick out the most important points that are relevant to the county and the progress that the county has made, and show that in a shorter format rather than the longer textbook format that it is.
I have a question. So I'm looking at one says history goals, and then on the other side, it says suggested historical preservation goals. So is the second one the new one? Is that the one
Correct.
you've got? Right?
So the history goals is what we had from 2016. Excuse me. And the suggested is what we
second
come up
page.
with. Again, this is not set in stone. It's just a jumping off point to hear your guys' idea.
Okay.
I actually enjoyed reading the history of Rockbridge
Absolutely.
for myself. With that being said, I think, obviously, if you want to shorten it, that's fine.
Let's speak into the mic a little bit. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So if you want to shorten it, that's fine. But I would encourage if there's a link or something
Okay.
that would share this information, because I do think, we should be proud of the history of Rockbridge, and so that would be something I would like to see
Okay. That's a great suggestion.
versus just, bullet points, and I get it to shorten it. Just make sure that there's some way that's, someone wants to read this. Maybe there's a web, and maybe there already is. Good on you. But if not, if we could do something along those lines, would be great.
Great suggestion.
As the newest person here to Rockbridge County, I found it fascinating, the history, and I believe shorter is better. And I'm going through the certification class, and there's some, but the fact of the matter is, I think that it should be in here as a great intro. And rather, the tendency is, if it's not in front of you, you're not going to pursue it. And this is really interesting. We live in a very interesting county. I think we should do that. And other than maybe it uses a few extra pages, I think if people don't want to read it, they're not going to read it. I happen to be a nerd. I love to read stuff like this and the things, but I would like to see it kept, and I love the suggested addition too.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Thank you. Great work. I appreciate it. I
Yeah,
know that takes a
thanks.
lot to
Thank
get
you for
get
doing that.
through.
I think the plan going forward is we will work on your suggested edits over the next month and then present a completed edition at the next meeting for you guys to look at. And then we'll also give you an opportunity to read the draft of the next chapter, which will be natural resources. So I think that's going to be the plan going forward.
Okay, great.
How about the additional goals you were able to find in other localities? Have they been incorporated in this draft?
Yes, they
Okay.
have.
Okay, perfect. And that's that's the last page, suggested historic preservation
Mhm.
goals. All right, so the consensus, essentially what I'm hearing from the planning commission is y'all like the text in here. And that's fine. The biggest thing is the 21st century, we staff are gonna have to essentially find some additional information to put in there. Because if you start going, you start talking about Walmart renovations, if you will, that's in here. And so we might have more of a summary there as far as not name particular businesses, but say, during 21st century established growth in the Route 11 North corridor, with X number of, some sort of way to quantify that versus saying each business, because I think some staff had some suggestions. Okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? And so you can't really go in there, but in 2021, Dunkin' Donuts built, and that
Sure.
type of thing.
Right.
So we
I don't
might
think it
have
needs to be that detailed. You could say there was X number of building permits and, X number of dollars of, building approved or whatever.
I would agree with that. I think at all the reading, the 21st century was probably the,
it's like,
it's like, all right,
we're not
well,
doing it.
here's a filler. Let's
Yeah,
put this in here.
yes,
Yeah.
very
Well,
much
and
so.
by the same token, I think, like BMI is doing a ton of building and, that's all, important to note that they're doing that. They're expanding, obviously, WNL is too, but at the same time, years from now, is that going to really matter? Not probably.
Sure.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
so
you
yeah,
again.
no, we'll keep the majority in there and then work on the 21st century and then get that back to y'all. If you see any additional goals, suggested historic preservation goals, if you see any of those that you like or don't like, or if you think of any, if y'all think of any that you want to see additional goals or strategies in there, let us know that as well.
Thank you. So now we are on to zoning text amendment discussion about zoning text amendments.
Yes, and so
Changes.
just like the comprehensive plan, we're going to keep these on the agenda. You know, we're going to keep the comprehensive plan, and we are obviously going to get way more public involvement. I mean, this is an opportunity to public come and listen. You know, it's all trying to get public involvement. With that being said, you know, for the foreseeable future, this comprehensive plan update discussion will be on there. I got to figure out a way to get the essentially the Board of Supervisors involved in this part of the process as well, just like making these decisions, keeping it in, going out. They obviously have a large influence in that as well. So along with keeping the comprehensive plan discussion update going, for the foreseeable future, I would like to start putting a zoning text amendment discussion on there, essentially for the foreseeable future. So I've said it over and over. We have a very antiquated ordinance that it needs it more or less needs a complete overhaul. In my opinion, needs a complete overhaul. But that's a very large project that we're not going to tackle, you know, essentially overnight in-house. But I would like to start talking with y'all about some of the easier zoning text amendments, the housekeeping. There's some parts of the ordinance that had been previously modified, but not all parts were vetted, if you will. And so there's parts over here that don't make sense in another section because we changed this part but never updated another part. So what I'd like to do is essentially give y'all at the next meeting, another very large one that I'd like to continue talking about with y'all and continue pursuing is the solar ordinance discussion. Obviously, we had that on the agenda. There was some momentum. Chris Musso at the time was making some headway on that zoning text amendment. But with the new deputy zoning administrator coming on, that's something that he could tackle potentially. I am still looking forward to getting a zoning technician. He or she could tackle that as well. But keep in mind the zoning solar ordinance discussion that we've had, but also keep updating y'all on that in the foreseeable future, but then also bring some of these low hanging fruits with y'all as well that I don't think are going to be very controversial at all. It's essentially how we are doing things nowadays, and it's just housekeeping.
I think one was surfaced last meeting, I think. From what I recall, one was surfaced last meeting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we? Mr. Whitmore said one was surfaced last week or our last meeting, and that was the one that was okay. Well, we have a agricultural transitional zone that provides for agricultural uses, but commercial greenhouses are used by special exception. And when we first found that, I found that to be unusual. It's okay. Well, you do all this ag activity outside, but once you bring a greenhouse involved in it, it's like, wait a minute, that's a use by special exception. So that was a little bit unusual to me at the time, for sure.
A point about that, would that include aquaculture? You know, I
think it would, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if it was a greenhouse, well, I see what you're saying. If they're starting, I don't know if I can answer that without having without having some business model or some development plans and
sort of.
Yeah. I mean, they're really big up where I came from. A guy
like hydroponics. I think that would. I think that would, because you have that commercial greenhouse aspect of it. And that was the problem I was having as a zoning administrator, saying, okay, well, where is the commercial greenhouse stop or start, and where does the agricultural come into play? Because Swami, Mr. Carmen, I should say, was a very good example of that, where he was just starting the plants inside and then transitioning to outside.
Right.
And so that is one good example. And what I'd like to do is essentially bring you a list of 5 next month, 5 zoning text amendments that I think that we should at least discuss, and then try to bring 2 to public hearing potentially. It all depends on workload. This month we didn't have any public hearing. So, we were able to start even thinking about this. I mean, I've thought about this for a long time, but put it on the agenda, obviously very nominal work going towards it. But next month's meeting, I would really like to bring y'all 5 zoning text amendments to potentially discuss. And all of them are fairly nominal. I mean, I'll for example, the 2 that are coming to my mind is food trucks. We don't address food trucks in the ordinance anywhere. It's sort of a new phenomenon, if you will. And so we just always allowed them as restaurants, where if you read our definition of restaurants, it may or may not fit in there. With that being said, looking at other localities and what they're doing, a lot of them have just added the food trucks to their definition of restaurants. And so that could be one. Then it opens up another door of parking requirements, because the parking has to do with seats in the restaurants and average trips. So one thing always opens up 3 more things.
Wow.
But that's one that I would like to pursue. Another one that I know is out there is special. We have special provisions for setbacks on corner lots. And historically, we've always just treated corner lots as 2 front setbacks. You have a 65 in an agricultural zone. You have a 65 here and 65 here on 2 public roads, I should say. With that being said, we actually have special provisions for corner lots in the ordinance that states how to define which one is a front and which one is a side. And that's fine. We've been adhering to that, but it says the front shall be 25 feet. Well, that's just a leftover from the previous zoning ordinance that the front setbacks were 25 feet back in the mid-90s, essentially.
Right.
And so we never hear that, because you're essentially on a corner lot rather than a 65, you now go to a 25-foot front. And it's like, how does that work type thing? So there's a lot of them out there that need to be addressed.
So have we ever addressed we were going to come up with rules about solar panels. That was one. And then rules about the cell towers and like what those parameters were going to be.
Cell towers, absolutely. Solar.
That's done. We've never done the solar.
We've never done solar. No, I mean, we've talked about it probably a year ago. We even on some planning commission agendas, we had discussion of the solar ordinance.
Right.
We had a work session. One time we had a work session an hour early, talked about it. We have a long list of things. We've got a lot of research done on other localities, model ordinances from conservation groups, from Dominion Power, from everywhere in between. But we need to essentially put together everything we got, modify it, and get something that we feel is palatable for Rockbridge County in order to take it to public hearing, obviously. So
yeah, it just feels like, we got a bunch of them at one time and we're like, oh, we need to do this, but we kind of had to put it off because we're dealing with it. I think it's going to come back around again. We're going to have more again. And I don't want to be in that same position where we're like, oh, shoot, we didn't do that a year ago.
Absolutely. So that may be, and for Mr. Kramer and Mr. Watkins, it's the zoning text amendments are the same process as map amendments. So, zoning text amendments can be initiated by a motion from the planning commission or a resolution stating the intent by the board of supervisors. So it's sort of unusual. The board needs a resolution, but y'all just need a motion. If I'm remembering that correctly. With that being said, y'all could make a motion, say food trucks. Let's take something to public hearing that adds food trucks to the definition of restaurants. And then y'all would instruct staff to do that. We would come back next month. We could come back next month with a public hearing for public hearing, notice public hearing. You obviously don't get certified mail to your joiners because there are no joiners, but you do the notice public hearing in the newspaper, and then you go through the public process just like a rezoning. Rezonings are considered a map amendment, and zoning text amendments are zoning text.
I mean, if we have a handful of those to do, and I don't know if it's 5 or if it's 25, but I mean, seems like we should be able to do those and advertise them all in one thing instead of doing them one at a time. That's going to take forever.
Yeah, and there will be each one. I would like to do one fail swoop. That's the ultimate. That would be great if we could do one fail swoop of the zoning ordinance. It's just not going to happen anytime soon in the foreseeable.
But I mean,
future.
you don't have to just do one at a time. You can
Absolutely,
do 5 at a
yes.
time, or however many.
Each one will certainly drum up business for us. So yeah, we'll just have to see which ones which
Sounds
one's
like a
working
lot of
for
them are very much just common sense.
Yes.
Things that we just need to basically clean up to make sure it matches, in two different areas,
Absolutely,
like
yes.
the restaurant definition versus, food truck or whatever.
Some of them definitely will be easier than others.
Let's
but
do all the easy ones.
Absolutely. Start
So
with
let's
the
get those done.
Yeah.
Just, maybe it's not the time, but say a food truck. I mean, does the Virginia Department of Health, do they
regulate them as far as it's just the same as they do restaurants.
Restaurant,
They do
okay.
inspections, that type of thing.
Okay.
And so essentially, prior to us signing off on the business license form, we get that information, or 9 out of 10 times they'll bring that information with us, the health department approval.
Okay.
But that's a sort, essentially the sanitation, this health and sanitation aspects of it. This is, and really what propelled this forward is one gentleman was looking to buy a piece of land and start a food truck park, if you will. And it's like, okay, well, I don't think we're going to get challenged too terribly much with a food truck in the
Great Valley.
ex-hotel parking lot.
Right.
You know what I mean? However, when people start investing more in the land, not just the food truck, they have the food truck and, they can go here and there. But once you start talking about the land and developing a food truck park, if you will, that's when you start, okay, well, people are getting more money involved with it. I'm not making short of the food truck, cost of food trucks associated with it, but obviously they're mobile, you know what I mean? And so they can go in existing business zones, events, that type of thing, regardless if it's in Rockbridge County or surrounding 30, 45-minute drive, however the business plan is.
Right.
But for the ones, it gives a good, safe sense of security, both in the ordinance and in reality, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Some communities the restaurant owners are very much against, special exceptions for food trucks.
Yes, because you don't have those same brick and mortars, you don't have your same real estate, you don't have your same investment, upfront investment. And we may get that. I mean, we have not, for whatever reason, I've heard that time and time again. I've kept up with it and I agree, but we haven't gotten those same concerns with our restaurantees, if you will, in Rockbridge County. But that's something that's, this is going to be a super easy one. You get the newspaper ad out there and lo and behold, hey, this wasn't as easy as we anticipated.
Sure.
As far as any feedback we get.
And rightfully so, to his point is, John's Bakery, who, is paying taxes and been in business for a long time and is adhering to every single thing that has been brought up on his plate, so to speak, as far as, how you have to operate and everything. Then all of a sudden, Sean's Pizzeria food truck pulls up across the street and
No water and sewer hookup fees, no.
Sure.
lot, no-
Right. And, I mean, to me, it seems like there's a revenue challenge for the county there that says, all right, well, this food truck may be in Rockbridge today, maybe in Augusta tomorrow. How can you truly, and maybe it's not our place, but anyway, it's just,
Yeah, how do you police that?
yeah, exactly. And so,
It's a tough enforcement.
yeah. And, maybe we should look into getting a food truck, but
So another thing I thought, and we're getting off on a good discussion on food trucks, but even having in the definition of a temporary placement up, so you're not getting in those where you have, no wheels on it or something's essentially parked there and will be parked there for the foreseeable future.
sure.
The coming and going.
I was thinking about the Chick-fil-A, which
Yeah,
is
it's-
gone
it
now.
stayed there. Yeah.
It's gone now, but I mean, it was there for a long time. And
Right.
it was
And
certainly
I was
not
in-
temporary.
No, and I was anticipating a much short time frame. than
That's what
that.
I kept thinking.
And I'm not even saying that it couldn't be pulled away and pulled in on a daily basis, but that.
Well, like Mr.
mobile-
G's,
Yes.
who's there on Friday,
All the other
Saturday or
ones,
whatever,
essentially. Yeah, all the other ones essentially. I don't know of any other one except for the Chick-fil-A trailer that was parked there for.
Well, what
6
about
months.
the Mexican, Mexican restaurant that's been parked or food truck that's been parked in front of, What is it?
The auto-
AutoZone.
AutoZone, yeah.
See, I was thinking that was Cummins and Goins. It's there. I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's
Found a good
It's there.
location.
It's not going anywhere.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. I did not realize
Uh-huh.
that. But that's something to take into consideration as far as when we do the ordinance itself.
Right. Okay.
Seems like it could get sticky.
No, it does. I mean,
Yeah.
anything, it's like, oh, this would, I mean, Grant, don't get me wrong. I could pick out 5 right now that we would not have. I could pick out 25 right now that we would not have a bit of discussion on, have some discussion, but it'd be about as long as I'm saying my explanation of having a discussion on it. It just makes sense. But there are other ones that definitely are a little bit more layers of issues
Sure.
you want to start tackling.
Okay.
But I have found it unusual when we were doing a food truck, that other localities, in fact, just put food trucks on the restaurant establishments. Dining establishments was one common definition, and it just added food trucks at the end. And you could obviously tell when food trucks have been added, because we have like dairy bars. We have a very antiquated definition of restaurants, let's put it that way. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think dairy bars in there,
Soda fountain.
So, there is one that's called, in fact, I wrote a zoning verification form about last month ago, and I used soda fountains. I mean, it was in there, so it's like, okay, well, you fit into this soda fountain category, and everyone's like, where do you have a soda fountain from? So,
We need one.
I'll go for sure.
yeah, and I don't know if it's better. I'll have to get a better game plan. I don't know if it's better going chapter by chapter or just picking and choosing. Off the cuff, I think picking and choosing is the way to do it.
Get the easy ones.
It's a
knocked
very
out.
public process. Again, notice of
Mhm.
public hearing, that whole 9 yards. And of course, I'll do the same as the comprehensive plan discussion. We'll do our best to keep the supervisors up to date and in the loop per se type thing.
Okay. Thank you. Any other things we need to bring up this evening?
So I
Okay.
will say we are going to have some public hearings next month. I think at least 2 or 3 in December. So with that being said, I'm not expecting, I don't think I have many, we don't think we have.
What's
very
the date
many
of the
controversial
meeting?
ones. That is on the
Trying to think.
Wednesday, the 13th, I think. but
Okay.
let me
I was thinking the first was like on a Thursday. It's my birthday. So,
14th,
okay.
Wednesday, the 14th.
Later in the month. Okay. All right. We need a motion to adjourn
Make a motion to adjourn.
in a second.
Second.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate y'all's time as always.